And we did, for those of us who subscribe to the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, submit before Nadco that part of that endeavor is this housing agenda. And I am glad that even those of our colleagues in the Azimio coalition do agree with us, including the former Prime Minister, that housing as an agenda is critical at this particular time in our republic, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, too, on the question of the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, there are many proposals, many good proposals that came from the Azimio coalition, and some, in fact, 90% of what was submitted by the Azimio coalition before Nadco on the cost of living, we are able to adopt those proposals, touching on some of the levies that touch on the cost of fuel in this country. Honorable Speaker, we had also points of divergence on principle, Honorable Speaker, and we respectfully agreed that because some of the proposals they had are proposals that touch on their manifesto in Azimio, especially on the question of subsidies and consumption subsidies. And we were able to push our case, and we were able to agree with our colleagues in the Azimio coalition that on the question of consumer subsidies, they allow the government of the day to implement the manifesto that they sold to the people of Kenya that had nothing to do with consumer subsidies, but had everything to do with production subsidies, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad, Honorable Speaker, today, as we speak, months after the very heated engagements that we had in Nadco, including some like the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, pretending to have walked away on the last minute, Honorable Speaker. And I say pretending because Honorable Eugene Wamalwa was part of the engagements in Nadco up to and including the very last meeting on the Friday before the actual signing. And when he excused himself to travel to Kinshasa, he had indicated he'd come back to sign that report the day after. And let me thank all the members of the Nadco committee because they all signed except the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. And on the question of the prices of unga, which I know is what was being sold then, I am saying I am glad that today, Honorable Speaker, as we engage in the debate on this report, Honorable Speaker, nobody in this country today, including my colleagues in Azimio, none of them today speaks about the cost of unga when they talk about the cost of living today, Honorable Speaker. I am glad that what we told them in Nadco and what we have told them before, that production subsidies do work. And it is a proven theory in economics that production subsidies give you better results and more lasting results than consumption subsidies. Today, Honorable Speaker, the price of unga that was at 260, I saw yesterday somebody posted one of the groups, one of the brands today retailing at 114 shillings without consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Farmers, patriotic farmers in this country, Honorable Speaker, courtesy of the subsidized fertilizer, have produced millions of bags that they would never have produced, Honorable Speaker, had they not accessed the subsidized fertilizer that was going for 7,000 shillings only a year ago, but today, a year and a half ago, Honorable Speaker, but today they're able to access fertilizer at a price of 2,500 shillings. And that is what has brought down the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, in the terms of the price of unga. And I'm glad those of our friends who donned sufurias on their heads, today their sufurias are very busy in the kitchen, in their kitchens with unga at 114 shillings, Honorable Speaker. And some of the most expensive brands retailing at 140 shillings, brands that were going at a price of 278 when we were being pushed to go for fertilizer subsidies, for consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Let me, Honorable Speaker, without belaboring a lot of these things much, because the report has been debated even in the public fora, plead with all of us to adopt this report. Is a product of a very fruitful bipartisan engagement, Honorable Speaker. The spirit of Nadco was to ensure that never again, Honorable Speaker, in this country, shall we ever have to fight.
Mr. Speaker, the majority leader is about to wind up, but did you hear him saying that the cost of unga has reduced? From which shop, may I ask, from which shops in Nairobi does the majority leader shop from, where the cost of unga is reduced to 140? May I ask, although perhaps I'm going to different shops.
First of all, this is not question time. Carry on. There, you are prosecuting your point of order wrongly. You're asking questions instead of asking whether he's in order to say what he's saying.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And you know, Honorable Speaker, I was careful because I'm not in the business of promoting brands. But I have just seen it was the Honorable Ruto who shared the photo of one of the brands retailing in a supermarket in Nairobi at 114 shillings. You could share that picture with Honorable TJ. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I was saying this Nadco process, Honorable Speaker, was informed by the desire by all Kenyans to engage in our politics in a way that is devoid of violence, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad that we were able to transact business in Nadco in a very civil manner, in a spirit of give and take, and the Honorable Opio will bear me witness that even the most difficult questions within Nadco, we were able to deal with them in a very good way, in a very civil way, without anybody throwing words at each other and being able to engage. And the whole spirit, Honorable Speaker, of the National Dialogue Committee was that spirit of dialogue. And we did indicate, Honorable Speaker, even as we engaged, that that is a desire of every Kenyan, that whether it is problems that emanate from our electoral processes, whether it is problems that come from the cost of living, never again shall Kenyans have to engage in violence, but we shall be able to dialogue with each other, talk to each other, Honorable Speaker, and be able to resolve all issues that are of concern to us as Kenyans in an amicable manner through dialogue. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, see my time is over. I beg to move and plead with all of us to support this report, adopt it so that we allow the House to be able to be seized of the legislative proposals that have far-reaching effects, especially those that touch on our electoral processes and the challenges that bedevil our IEBC and delimitation of boundaries. With those many remarks, I beg to move and request the Honorable Leader of Minority, the Honorable Pio Wandai, the Nadco Deputy Delegation Leader of the Azimio Coalition, to second.
Yes, Honorable Ruku, what is...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is good to inform Honorable Kajwang.
Order. You're out of order. He's not on the floor. Order. Cross off and go and quietly tell him.
The Honorable Speaker, how I wish our colleague members would learn the rules of this House and avoid taking us in circles or treating us to unnecessary shenanigans. Honorable Speaker, let me start as I second the motion for the adoption of the National Dialogue Committee report by saying that the establishment of the Nadco was as a result of very, very painful experiences that the country was going through following the elections of August 2022 and following the immense suffering that Kenyans were going through as a result of the skyrocketing cost of living. Those twin issues took hundreds, if not thousands, of Kenyans to the streets across the country. And the country was teetering on the brink of total collapse of governance and indeed lawlessness. And therefore, we must thank the initiators of this Nadco process, the Honorable Raila Odinga and the Honorable William Ruto. We can also not forget to thank immensely President Olusegun Obasanjo for having made efforts to ensure that both parties saw the sense to come to the table. Honorable Speaker, the spirit that guided the Nadco process was that of give and take. Just like in any negotiation process, it was a question of giving and taking. We had a raft of issues as the Azimio coalition that we had placed on the table. Similarly, the Kwanza side had their issues. At the end of the day, we were able to harmonize these issues and develop a framework of engagement, which guided our negotiations up to the end. I'm happy that in the face of enormous challenges, in the face of serious differences in opinion, we were able to arrive at specific recommendations touching on specific areas or thematic areas, and to condense this in a report, which is the subject of this motion that is before us today. The Honorable Speaker, I want to summarize really, because 10 minutes is too short. Some of the takeaways in the report, without necessarily repeating, are one, the roadmap towards reconstitution of the IEBC. The second one is the governance structure, the governance around political parties and their management. There is the issue of the audit of the elections. We have agreed on this matter to establish within 21 days upon the adoption of this report a panel consisting of 3 persons from each side to develop the terms of reference that will guide this audit process. I want to leave it to that panel to be able to establish these TORs. We must also, of course, talk about the World Development Fund, but more importantly, the matter of the increase of the allocation of the national revenues to the counties from the current minimum 15% to 20%. Those are some of the takeaways. But coming back to the question of the IBC, I keep on saying, time and again, that in this part of the world, the matter of elections is life and death. Believe you me or not. Elections in this country, just like it is in this part of the world, is a matter of life and death. And therefore, the body that is to be charged with the responsibility of managing elections must be like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach, and must enjoy the confidence of the wider majority of the populace, and indeed must enjoy the confidence of the key players in the electoral process. That is what informed Nadco's recommendation to restructure the IEBC, to restart the process of appointing the IEBC commissioners, and to recommend specific amendments to the Elections Act, to the IEBC Act, and indeed to the Constitution. We in Nadco resolved that never again should the country go back to where it was just few weeks or so before the establishment of the Nadco. That never again should we have a situation where an IBC would be split down the middle at the critical moment of announcing the results of presidential elections. That it was never the intention of the framers of our constitution, and indeed Kenyans, when they adopted this constitution in 2010, that a body charged with the onerous responsibility of managing elections would be split in the middle at the critical stage of announcing presidential election results. The raft of recommendations in this report are, among other things, aimed at curing that very, very serious problem that can only be, that has come to be associated with only Kenya. Honorable Speaker. The Honorable Speaker, the issue of the two-third gender principle, the not more than two-third gender principle, has been adequately captured in the report. It was our view in Nadco that since the time was not adequate, and since there was a working group, a multisectoral working group, dealing with that question, that we give it time to complete its work and compile a report, which report would be treated as part of the Nadco. The report that would come from the multisectoral group, working group, dealing with the question of the not more than two-third gender principle, within the letter and spirit of the Nadco report, would be part of the Nadco report. And I want to join Honorable Chungwa in urging that group. I had a chance to meet them yesterday, Honorable Speaker. They came calling to my office, and I had very, very fruitful engagement with them. And I urged them yesterday to fast-track the process and submit their report with the proposed instruments to this House, even as we proceed with this process of implementing the Nadco recommendations. Honorable Speaker, there are some issues that the committee, in its wisdom, recommended that they be referred to the principals, the two principals, Honorables William Ruto and Honorable Raila Odinga. Honorable Speaker, one of the issues that we agreed should be referred to the two principals is the matter of the Cherera 4. The 4 IBC commissioners that differed in opinion with the other three. It was in the wisdom of the committee that matter be referred to the two principals to perhaps pursue a settlement outside the court process. We also agreed that on the matter of violence, including violence against the public by the police and police killings, be referred to the principals with a view to forming a system, to establishing a system of undertaking thorough investigations and holding whoever is responsible.
1 minute.
So, Honorable Speaker, in a nutshell, as I conclude, given that the document we are discussing today, the Nadco report, is a negotiated document, is a consensus document, our understanding and our position is that such a document is not open to any form of amendment. And that principle also applies equally to the attendant instruments, that is the proposed legislative amendments to statutes and the Constitution. So with those very many remarks, I second and I urge my colleagues to adopt this report in totality and to allow the country to move forward in one accord. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Minority Leader. I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the National Dialogue Committee laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th December 2023. Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I did have opportunity to make both a personal presentation to this committee as well as a group presentation by 27 other honorable members of Parliament. I would like to talk about three things. I've gone through it, and I must thank the committee for at least recording and acknowledging our presentation as 27 members of Parliament who called for the creation of 10 additional counties based on the original Kilifi draft and other instruments that preceded the enactment of the 2010 Constitution. However, I've noted that there are several glaring misrepresentations of what the position of the Constitution is in relation to the way new counties are established. You will agree, Honorable Speaker, that the IEBC has completely no role in the review and delimitation of county boundaries. This is preserved for this National Assembly under Article 188, where by a resolution we can establish a commission that will investigate the boundaries based on a criteria which is in the Constitution and establish new counties. I've realized when I've read the report where they're making a statement under paragraph 201, and I believe it is FGHI, that the establishment of new counties require a referendum because such an act would interfere with the territory of Kenya. Nothing would be further from the truth. I've looked at Articles 5 and 6 of the Constitution, which clearly define what the territory of Kenya is, and territory of a country is defined by reference to external boundaries in terms of the neighboring countries, never by what the boundaries are within the county, which is where the boundaries for counties are. I think it would be wrong to adopt the report without any amendment when such a glaring misrepresentation is in the report, which that is not what the law says. Yes, they are saying we also need a referendum, which is not the correct position. A referendum is clearly defined under Articles 255 and 256. And you only go to a referendum when you're dealing with counties if you want to change the objects, principles, and structure of devolved units. Creating new counties do not interfere with objects under Article 174, principles under 175, and the structure under 176. Structure is simply that a county government will have a county executive and a county assembly. There is no other structure. So it is wrong. I think we need to amend some of these resolutions here and then have accuracy in the report. So even though it is a product of negotiated settlement, we cannot allow it just to go with such misrepresentations. Secondly, I did make a presentation on party discipline as well as registration of new political parties. My presentation has not been covered here, and I would like it to go on record that, again, if you read the chapters on this report on party discipline, there is a lot of confusion whether we are a presidential system, a parliamentary system, and if we are a parliamentary system, which one are we? What is being presented here is a situation where elections are elections of political parties, not of individuals who are elected by individual mandate from the people. We should look at what happens in pure presidential systems, which is a system of governance that we have in this country, and adopt mechanisms that encourage party discipline within a presidential system. We cannot be importing parliamentary systems, practices and norms of parliamentary systems into a presidential system without understanding what they are. What I'm trying to say is, in a parliamentary system, if you are elected as an individual in that party, there are certain freedoms and independence that you enjoy. If the party is elected and the party nominates you on the basis like in South Africa, there are certain limitations that you have. In a presidential system, you have a direct mandate from the people. You have a voice to vote as you wish in this house, only taking account of the interests of your people. That is what happens in America. That is what happens in all other jurisdictions with presidential system. And that is where we should go. Finally, I did propose, because of the bad manners of many people in the Republic of Kenya and the problems that we are having, that it is essential to institute what I call nationhood science, so as to promote the values and principles under Article 10. I've not seen it captured here. I want it to go to in the record of this House that I feel very strongly that we need to introduce civic education, entrepreneurship, and other things that will inculcate the national values and principles under Article 10 of the Constitution in our young before they get spoiled, rotten, and mess up our country. With those remarks, I will be moving some amendments on the recommendations of the report. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Next chance to the member for Marsabit, Honorable Wako.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate on Nadco report, as I also take this opportunity to congratulate the committee members who sacrificed a lot of their time and came up with this report that will guide our nation into a better nation. Honorable Speaker, the time they spent and the memorandums they have received from different Kenyans, and when the majority leader was moving, he said that 60 stakeholders appeared before the committee, which means that Kenyans took a lot of interest in this and they participated fully. Again, the majority leader told us that out of their report, 9 legislation proposals have been developed, which clearly shows us that they have given a lot of attention, and the legislation, the legislative proposals will of course capture the needs of this country and will guide us, as I said, into a better nation. IBC, the issue of IBC seems to have been given a lot of attention, and reconstituting IBC, of course, is a major thing today. We are going to second year after elections, and we have a lot of gaps since we did our last elections. We need IBC members to come in and IBC Commission to start off their work so that we prepare ourselves, we take care of the past mess, and also make sure that we have filled the gaps. There are many MCS, many members of parliament who have gone to be with the Lord. And now, if we reconstitute, then we will get on to work. And I recommend that the earlier we do, the better for our nation. Again, Madam Speaker, one encouraging thing that the majority leader said is that this House, this August House, has the mandate to extend the time in case we need, because the panel is to complete their work within 90 days. But if that is not achievable, then we have the mandate to add more days so that they can conclude. But it is my prayer that we will conclude this matter as soon as possible so that Kenyans will have the services that they need. Madam Speaker, the issue of delimitation of the boundaries is of interest to many of us, and we know that that time is also coming to an end. It is my prayer that we will come up with some proposals that will help us, because many counties, many wards, many areas have been suffering because of this challenge that we've had, and the earlier we also embark on this so that we can mark the boundaries so that people can coexist and also know their areas, that will also help our nation. One important thing they have covered is the issue of Ward Development Fund, which is a big encouragement to all our MCS, because as they sit and wait, once we approve this, then the MCS will be able to do their work freely without any challenge, without, placing the governor or the county executive. They'll be able to be empowered, because as of now, many of them are not able to do what they want to do in their counties, because they do not have these funds. And what I want to say on this is, even for the MCS, when these funds will be released and will be established, and of course implementation takes place, they should be accountable and they should have enough public participation so that the counties, the wards can benefit, and the people who elected them can also feel the power. And with those few remarks, I support, and it is my prayer that we will all participate in this debate. Thank you.
Honorable John Mbadi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I support this report, I want to mention a few things. Number one is for there to be a discussion or dialogue of this nature. Certainly it had to be preceded by some kind of or form of crisis. We had a crisis, as has been ably talked about by our minority leader. But Madam Speaker, we need to ask ourselves this question. I've been around here from 15th of January 2008. I've actually been in this chamber for more than 16 years. And every time from that time of the 10th Parliament, when we had post-election violence, we keep on using the same words, same terminologies as both leaders today used. That never again will this country experience the kind of violence. I mean, this is becoming rhetoric, Madam Speaker, and I want to say that as a country we must ask ourselves fundamental questions. Why is it that after every election we always have a crisis in this country? That is the question that we need to address. But looking at this report, I'm afraid to say that we still fear. We still gloss over issues. We have not addressed the main issue, the biggest problem, the challenge that we are facing as a country. It is about the system of government. Madam Speaker, some people call it winner takes it all. Some other people call it the feeling and the sense of exclusivity and inclusivity. Why do some Kenyans feel belonging to this country more than others, especially when elections are conducted? We need to ask ourselves that question. And looking at this report, Madam Speaker, we are not solving this problem. If we have decided that this system of government, the presidential system, is not working for us, then why don't we go the full hog and go parliamentary system? Why are we again creating systems that are very difficult to understand? That you are creating an office of the opposition leader when you have a presidential system? How does it work? I mean, let us not pretend and cheat ourselves and lie to ourselves that we are solving this problem. We are not. And I am afraid